National Monetary Fund. It ends up just shy of the $40 billion figure the president asked for from Congress. What officials aren't saying publicly is just how close Mexico came to defaulting on its loans.
The word Secretaries of Treasury should never use, so I would just say that we're getting to the point where we were very troubled.
Having been sidestepped by the president, some critics in Congress hedged their bets on the wisdom of the president's move.
The president has the power to do what he is doing, whether it is wise or not. Obviously, history is going to be the judge of that. I hope it is wise.
Late today, arriving in Boston for a speech, the president called his Mexican counterpart from aboard Air Force One to talk about the package. White House aides tonight are openly pleased with this, calling it a deal well struck, saying the White House did what Congress, for whatever reason, could not. Tom?
Right, this might have been an indication to the president, though, that he won't be able to get anything through Congress. He's going to have to go around it. Is that going to be possible in every case?
Well, in this case, of course, all parties are happy. There's no damage to Congress, but boy, did the administration have to improvise. They found this money in a fund that dated back to 1934.
Thanks very much. Brian Williams at the White House tonight. The news from Washington sent a charge to the Mexican stock market today. That stock market shot up by more than 10%. The peso did almost as well after hitting an all-time low on Monday. The plight of the peso has left many Americans on edge. Those who live on the edge, the U.S.-Mexican border. Their own economic futures are linked with the pesos. More now from NBC's Jim Cummins.
Texas and Mexico share 1,200 miles of border and an estimated $13 billion in business. Mike Gonzalez owns an oil field pipe company that does business with Pemex, the Mexican national oil company. He says this about President Clinton.
We feel that he did the right thing right now. Mexico's got to have definitely an injection of money now in order to get their economy going.
Mexico is Houston's #1 trading partner. $5 billion worth of goods go through the port of Houston every year.
What happens in Mexico is directly going to impact what happens here in Houston in terms of our future and economic growth.
In Laredo, Texas, business leaders hope the new aid plan will rescue the local economy, where about a dozen businesses have been forced to close and hundreds of workers laid off as the peso lost 45% of its value since December 20th. In El Paso, Penny Keschel says that has killed business at his electronics store, and he remains skeptical about the bailout.
The bailout basically is like giving chemotherapy to somebody who has cancer, you know.
Carlos Legaspi, who buys and sells Mexican stock, says the bailout is good news for investors across the country.
The action from the administration was very good because it also rallied international support.
The collapse of the Mexican economy has been blamed for the recent surge in illegal immigration in Nogales, Arizona. 19,000 illegals this month alone, double the number in January last year. In El Paso, the mayor says without the bailout, his city will have to spend $30 million on social services for illegal immigrants.
I'm worried if we do not help Mexico, we will see a new tide coming north.
One immigration official agrees, saying anything that is done to help the Mexican economy is certain to reduce illegal immigration along the border. Jim Cummins, NBC News, Dallas.
And on tonight's Washington Wire, the nation's governors wrapped up their annual meeting with the demand more control over welfare programs. President Clinton and Speaker Gingrich said they agree, but still no deal on how to do all this. And from House Democratic leaders, a request. They urge Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan not to raise interest rates again. The Fed is meeting right now, and an increase is expected sometime tomorrow. When NBC Nightly News continues in a moment, the Simpson jury finally hears a witness. Also, Europe is underwater tonight. Record flooding, mass evacuations, and too many deaths. What do you get when you cross Dirty Harry with Miss Manners? How about kinder, gentler cops?
I could have done a strong night. It seems like yesterday that I introduced that song, and it's still going strong. And despite the arthritis that runs in my family, so am I. Arthritis is why I'm here, to talk to you about something I believe in, the Arthritis Foundation. Their goal is to find a cure, but until they do, they've helped to create new Arthritis Foundation pain relievers. 4 proven, powerful medicines for pain relief you can really count on, from nighttime discomfort to the pain of inflammation. They're great value, and part of our purchase price goes to research to help find a cure. So we're helping others as we help ourselves. New Arthritis Foundation pain relievers, for relief you can count on until we find a cure.
My son is bringing his lady friend for dinner, and I've got such gas. So I take my Lanta gas relief gel caps with the best and only medicine for gas relief and an advanced gel cap. So who calls to cancel? They should both get gas.
Over the last few years, a lot of people have seen their investments drop in value. Unfortunately, that's life. Our annuities have held their value and consistently paid higher rates than CDs. That's New York Life. New York Life, the company you keep.
In Los Angeles today, finally, the preliminaries are over, the opening statements are completed now, and the witnesses are on the stand. As NBC's David Bloom tells us tonight, as expected, the prosecution opened with O.J. Simpson, wife-beater.
Showing the jury police photographs of a battered and bruised Nicole Brown Simpson, her sweatpants covered in mud, her right eye blackened and swollen, prosecutors began to build their case against O.J. Simpson.
911 emergency, operator 461. Hello?
Exhibit number 1, Nicole Brown Simpson's January 1st, 1989 911 call to police. Then came the police officer who arrived at Simpson's estates, only to find a partially clad Nicole Brown Simpson hiding in the darkness.
A woman came running out of the bushes to my left and collapsed on the speaker post on the inside of the gate and started yelling, "He's going to kill me, he's going to kill me." I said, "Well, who is going to kill you?" She said, "OJ." She was wet, she was shivering, she was cold, she was beat up. She said that OJ had slapped her, hit her with his fist, and kicked her. She told me why the argument had occurred that night.
What did she tell you?
She said that there was 2 other women living in the house, and that O.J. Simpson had sex with one of them prior to going to bed that night with her.
Edwards says an enraged O.J. Simpson came out of the house, screaming at his wife and telling the officer,
"I didn't beat her, just pushed her out of the bed, nothing more."
Told he was going to be arrested, the detective says Simpson jumped into his Bentley and sped away, only to later plead no contest to spousal abuse. But defense attorney Johnny Cochran suggested it was a mutual fight, that both had been drinking, when Detective Edwards said the injuries were actually worse than the pictures showed, and that he wanted to take more pictures, but ran out of film. Cochran started pounding away.
There was other film at West Los Angeles Station, isn't that correct, sir?
She wanted to leave. She wanted to go back to her children.
Can you answer my question? Was there other film at West Los Angeles Station?
Somewhere in that station, I'm sure there was other film.
This morning, in an unprecedented rebuttal to the defense opening statements, prosecutor Marcia Clark spent 6 minutes attacking the credibility of surprise defense witnesses, such as the woman who claims to have seen 4 suspicious men racing from the murder scene.
Show that Mary Ann Gurchis is a known liar and a Simpson case groupie.
But it was O.J. Simpson's image prosecutors attacked today, painting an ugly picture of an adulterer and a wife-beater. David Bloom, NBC News, Los Angeles.
Other news tonight, after 90 years of the same old method, the Department of Agriculture today recommended major changes in the way that meat and poultry in this country is tested for safeness. The change, the first since Oklahoma was admitted as a state, took on a new urgency in recent years. Here's NBC's Robert Hager.
With outbreaks of foodborne illness on the rise nationwide, the federal government today proposed a major overhaul of the way meat and poultry is inspected. For 90 years, the government's relied solely on its line inspectors to view, feel, and smell every single carcass at every single processing plant in the country. 127 million meat carcasses each year, 7 billion poultry carcasses. But the modern-day threats to health can't be found by seeing, touching, or smelling. The new threats are microscopic. Bacteria with names such as E. coli, Listeria, Salmonella, and Campylobacter. Together, they may cause up to 5 million illnesses a year and an estimated 4,000 deaths. Today's new Agriculture Department proposals would require laboratory testing to look for bacteria, at least 1 sample a day from each plant tested. Processors with problems forced to make improvements. The new proposals would also require more use of rinses to help eliminate bacteria, and mandatory temperature controls to make sure meat and poultry are rapidly chilled. The government wants to make this effective within a year. Hopes processors will move sooner.
We call upon the industry to take steps today. Don't wait for the government regulatory process, to take steps today that are available today to reduce risk.
But many in the food industry worry about the proposals, which the government admits could cost $250 million a year, adding a fraction of a cent per pound to the price of meat and poultry. A statement from the Meat Institute calls this layering new regulations on top of the old inspectors who would still see, touch, and feel every single carcass.
But with many in Congress nowadays calling for fewer regulations, lawmakers may try to block the new rules, which would leave in place the present system, which can't find bacteria, which would mean more outbreaks of illness. Robert Hager, NBC News, Washington.
In a moment, Europe battles against rising floodwaters, and the worst is yet to come there.
Did you know that changes in tax laws will affect over 10 million taxpayers this year? At H&R Block, we're ready to help you deal with change. For example, certain changes could mean an increase of up to $300 in your refund if you qualify. At H&R Block, we know the tax laws. Come in to find out what changes could affect you. Do what millions of Americans do. Trust H&R Block.
Presenting Bandit. Pound for pound, he uses more energy than most dogs twice his size. That's why we make Mighty Dog. It has the perfect balance of nutrients he needs. It makes your dog a mighty dog.
When it comes to top hand tools, we're making a name for ourselves because they're made with a full lifetime warranty. That's Ace, the name to know for hand tools.
I love antiques. I just don't want to feel like one. But when I get a regular, I feel pretty antique. Slow, sluggish. Harsh chemical laxatives aren't the answer. They can work suddenly, unexpectedly. Oh boy, can that be embarrassing? That's why I use Metamucil. Its natural fiber works with my body's natural rhythms, gets me back on track. And like they say, you're only as young as you feel.
Metamucil, the natural choice for regularity.
News from around the world tonight. In Europe, the worst flooding in 40 years now. It has forced the evacuation of tens of thousands of people to higher ground. Many deaths as well. Here's NBC's Jim Lesader.
As waters continued to rise in Holland, some 70,000 Dutch fled, many to makeshift shelters. Another 100,000 were asked to abandon their homes, while farm animals in danger of drowning were being evacuated as well. Here it was a battle to hold the dikes. If they break, much of Holland will be under 18 feet of water. Elsewhere in Europe, a week of floods took its toll. At least 26 dead in France, Belgium, and Germany, as unusually warm weather mixed heavy rains and melted snow, submerging power lines, motorways, and residential areas. In Germany, along the swollen banks of the River Main in Frankfurt, rescue teams worked around the clock to save historic buildings.
The foundations are leaking, so we can't prevent the flooding.
In Cologne, the Rhine River hit a depth of almost 36 feet, covering much of the old town. For now, the Rhine's record-breaking water level seems to have stabilized, but there's bad news ahead. More rains expected during the week and more flooding. Today, hundreds of German troops ferried residents around this wealthy Cologne suburb where the Rhine nearly hid the street signs. And for thousands elsewhere in Europe, the choice is stark. Either leave your home or risk losing your life. Jim Lesader, NBC News, Cologne.
In news from around the nation tonight, firefighters in western Georgia are battling a massive blaze at a Milliken carpet factory. The smoke is visible up to 30 miles away. No injuries reported, but 24 homes have been evacuated. A Minnesota court struck down the Minneapolis domestic partner law that granted health benefits to same-sex partners of city employees. And there's a new study suggesting even more strongly that there is a genetic link for prostate cancer. Men whose brothers have been diagnosed with that cancer are more than twice as likely to develop prostate cancer themselves than those with no family history of the disease. This report also says that men in the at-risk category should start being screened yearly at the age of 40. When we come back here in a moment, an NBC News investigation into the politics of oil and terrorism. Also, our picture of the day. It's about politics in Hollywood.
The age-old concept of one vitamin fits all has been one-upped. Today's One-A-Day is the only multivitamin with a range of 5 scientifically balanced formulas for different needs. Like One-A-Day for women with more calcium, 55 plus with extra antioxidants which may reduce...
Confided that he had dreamt of killing his ex-wife and said police had found a bloody glove at his estate.
Well, did he ask you any questions? Any questions about the investigation that night?
After he told me about what they found at his house, he asked me how long does it take DNA to come back. I just off the cuff said 2 months.
And what did he say in response?
He said, I've had some dreams of killing her.
This morning, outside the jury's presence, Simpson's lawyers argued Shipp was lying, that his testimony would prejudice the jury. But Judge Lancido sided with prosecutors, who argued,
he says, I've been having a lot of dreams about killing her. And to me, that seems like it's so obviously powerful, compelling evidence of this fatal obsession with this woman.
But on cross-examination, Simpson's lawyers fiercely attacked the former Los Angeles police officer, characterizing him as a liar and a drinker, arguing that Shipp, questioned months ago by police and prosecutors, had said nothing.
Didn't you think, sir, that by concocting this story about Mr. Simpson, it might enhance your own personal profile?
Mr. Douglas, I put all my faith in God and my conscience. Since Nicole's been dead, I've felt nothing but guilt, my own personal guilt, that I didn't do as much as I probably should have.
You're not really this man's friend, are you, sir?
I guess you can say I was like everybody else, one of his servants.
You've lied a few times, haven't you, sir?
Never in court.
You do realize, Mr. Shipp, that by testifying as you have, you are going to enhance the name of Ron Shipp around the world.
But that's not why I'm doing this, Mr. Douglas. I'm doing this for my conscience and my peace of mind. I would not have the blood of Nicole on Ron Shipp.
But Simpson's lawyers questioned why Shipp had first made his allegations anonymously to the author of a tell-all book. His answer? I didn't want to be the one to nail O.J. Simpson. David Bloom, NBC News, Los Angeles.
And if you're still skeptical about the level of interest in this case, listen to this. O.J. Simpson's book, which hit the shelves just last week, is a runaway hit already. It's topping the Wall Street Journal and USA Today bestseller list today, and the publisher, Little Brown, says it is the fastest-selling book they've ever published. 500,000 copies already sold out. In other news tonight, as expected, the Federal Reserve raised the price of money by 0.5 percentage point, and the nation's banks were not far behind, raising their prime rates to 9%. As NBC's Mike Jensen tells us tonight, this was expected, but it's still not welcome in many quarters.
With today's increase, Chairman Alan Greenspan and the Federal Reserve have raised the discount rate 3 percentage points in a year. That's pushing all sorts of other rates higher. Home equity loans, personal and auto loans, business loans, credit cards, home mortgages, most up 1 to 3 percentage points. A year ago, the monthly payment on a typical mortgage was $665 a month. Now it's $805, and it soon may hit $840. That's a jump of $175 a month. John and Mary Meinig, who were house hunting today in Evergreen, Colorado, say those rates are a big problem.
If they go up further, we may delay our decision.
Higher mortgage payments leave less money to spend for other things, such as autos. Dealers say business also is slowing down because of higher loan rates. Some congressmen blasted the Fed for fighting inflation when there's none in sight.
I say it's very simple. Alan Greenspan is simply giving America the finger.
But there is a good side to higher rates, especially for people on fixed incomes. Investors in CDs, money market accounts, and treasury bonds are getting as much as twice the interest they earned a year ago.
I'm putting